All right. Hey, America, are you pissed off yet? Not? Really? You're not man enough to take some action yet? Wonder what you're waiting for. You waiting till it's one of your kids? You waiting till it's your daughter or your son that is killed by a drunk driver who was just released from prison because he was an illegal alien, not because he did something worthwhile to be released for? Well, let me just give you some statistics real quick so you get it. And then we're going to get on to our second topic, which is the CIA's Brennan, a Muslim convert, by the way, at the highest levels. I mean, this is the guy who runs the CIA. He's outraged by Snowden. Really? Outraged by Snowden. He's outraged by Snowden and by the stuff that's going on. He's defending drones, and he's got this whole interview that's up on fusion.net. You can find a link to it on our website or in the description section of this video. So I got to ask you, why is it that America isn't outraged by his treason? Because, I mean, the guy is clearly, here's a guy who was involved in Benghazi. He says he's looking for answers on Benghazi. He better look inside his own pants. I'm outraged by a Muslim convert who holds the keys to the greatest secrets the nation has. I'm outraged by a man who is outraged that his Dogs of War game is exposed. I'm outraged by treason. And you ought to be too. Before we get there, I want you guys to just understand the implications of the last crew of these criminal illegals who were released. In August 2012, a congressional report came out that stated that the last, between 2008 and 2011, when the last batches of illegals were released, subsequently these same people, and by the way, the numbers were much lower than this 36,000, they subsequently were charged with, get this, an additional 16,226 crimes that included 19 murders, 142 sex crimes, and thousands of drunk driving offenses, thousands of drug crimes, and other felonies. So let me ask you something. Here we have 36,000 illegal criminals who have been released inside of our border. It's treason. It's treason! And the last time that happened, there were 19 murders and 142 sex crimes. So let me ask you this. If your son is a victim, if your daughter is a victim, if your wife is a victim of rape by one of these people who's released, and you didn't stand in front of a store or speak at your church or talk about it to the guys at work, how are you going to sleep at night? I'm tired of Americans who talk big and do nothing. Either fight with us or admit defeat. And if you're going to do that, do me a favor. Stay out of my sight. John Brennan, the head of the CIA, became the director of the CIA in March of 2013. So he's been in the job a little over a year. Edward Snowden exposed the CIA, among others, including the NSA and the FBI and all these other agencies, right after that. And this guy actually has the nerve to be outraged at Snowden. Outraged? You mean, are you outraged when the former CIA NSA boss, who was General Michael Hayden, just admitted that we kill people overseas Not based on some kind of empirical evidence, but based on, quote, and this is his words, ladies and gentlemen, not mine, we kill people based on metadata. Well, let's see. As I recall, the president said, we're really not listening to your conversations and reading all your mail. All we're looking is the metadata. Well, isn't it funny that Michael Hayden just admitted that we kill people based on metadata? So why aren't you outraged about that, John Brennan? He actually had the nerve to say, and this is his words, not mine. This is John Brennan, the CIA director. I think I am, first of all, outraged that there are individuals who decided to take upon themselves to reveal some of the very, very important capabilities that this country has in place to keep Americans safe. What did I tell you, and what have I been saying to you time and time and time again about the phrase, keep America safe? It's a code word. It's a catchword. You know what it is? It's the go back to sleep word. It's the phrase that doesn't activate you. It's the phrase that puts you back to sleep. It's the phrase that pushes your off button. In a response to polls that show that the younger demographic supports the Snowden revelations, here's what Brennan had to say about that. I think most of the young people don't even understand what, in fact, he has done and the implications of it. Well, no, we understand exactly what he's done, and we understand exactly what you've done. We understand, John Brennan, that you're guilty of treason, that you should be charged, that you should be tried, and that you should be put to death. That's what we understand. I'm not young. I get it. You're a traitor. You and your dogs of war are out there running around on the planet, wreaking havoc everywhere you go. You've turned this nation into this imperial little dynasty run by a bunch of corporatocracy oligarchs. You're playing the game, and we're sick of it, and we're sick of you. We're sick of your ilk. We're sick of the crew that you run with. We're tired of the whole mess. You've got a power trip. We don't. The truth is, Snowden did what everybody in every agency ought to do. Blow the whistle. You know why he didn't tell Congress? Because that inept bunch of traitors would have sat on their hands. You know why he didn't go to the Department of Justice? Look at Eric the traitor Holder. I'm going to talk about him in just a minute, where he says, in our next segment, where he says he has no plans to investigate the secret waiting lists and the deaths of veterans at VA hospitals. Proven death. Now, here's a piece of human excrement that will jump into any voter ID fray or any potential or alleged racist comment he can find. But talk about real death of real people, not to mention veterans, and crickets. Crickets. General Michael Hayden, he's admitted publicly to mass murder. He came right out and he said himself, we kill people based on metadata. Let me ask you something. How long will it be before those people are not only Americans in foreign lands? You're going too far. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. It won't be long before we will see an American killed on American soil utilizing probably a drone attack or something of similar ilk based on metadata. In fact, I guarantee you they've already happened. We just don't know about it yet. You know why? One, the Ministry of Propaganda is not an investigative journalist organization. They're not all they do is they read from a teleprompter that's published and issued to them by this administration and the progressive left. They're not journalists. They're not investigators. They're nothing. They're script readers. That's what they are. Script readers. You know, remember when you were 5 years old and you sat in kindergarten, all of you sat cross-legged in a semicircle around your teacher who sat up in a chair and read you Dick and Jane? Same thing. She didn't write it. She just read it. Michael Hayden has admitted that the Obama administration is murdering people around the world based solely on metadata collected by him and other intelligence agencies. He admitted it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's outrage. That's an outrage. Why isn't CIA Director John the Traitor Brennan upset about that? I'll tell you why. Because these two are, euphemistically spooning in the middle of the night. The CIA and the NSA. You got to be kidding me. Hayden, he's a retired general, and he is a member, in good standing apparently, of the Council on Foreign Relations, the most traitorous organization that most Americans don't even know exists. We're surrounded, led. Every person that is of a public view to you in political arena is a traitor. Everyone. Everyone. Without fail. If they're playing the game, if they're participating, if they have allowed it to happen under their watch, they're guilty of treason. You see, when you know what's happening and you don't do anything, you're just as guilty. If you sat there, I know a young girl. I'm going to tell you this little story. I know a girl. She's in her 20s. And she got involved. She got involved with some people where she was doing drugs. And the boyfriend went to another place where he could buy drugs, and he attempted to steal the drugs and rob the guy of his drugs. The guy pulled a knife and stabbed this kid and killed him. So the robber got stabbed by the drug dealer who he was trying to rob. She knew that he was going to go there and try to rob the guy. In fact, they got texts out of her phone. And they convicted her of an accessory to manslaughter. An accessory to murder. She got a 7-year prison sentence for that. Why? Their argument was, you should have called the police. Their argument was, you had an obligation to notify the police that this was going to go down, and a life wouldn't have been lost as a result. Who can argue with that? Does that give you pause for any people in any of these agencies, any people in Capitol Hill, any of the judges, any of the executive administration? They all have the same guilty knowledge. They all know what's going on. They all know what's happening. They all know what's going on with the CIA and the NSA. And even if they don't know the specific details, just as she didn't know she wasn't there. She never went there. She just knew he was going to go. And they saw a text that proved it to them. She said, "Are you okay? Is everything all right over there? Did you get what you went for?" And that was enough for them to convict her of accessory. Don't tell me that these people on Capitol Hill don't know that this metadata is being used. Don't tell me that these people on Capitol Hill don't know that what Snowden was talking about. They knew. They've been briefed before. And if they weren't briefed, it's because they didn't show up to a briefing. Do you remember when this all came out and got exposed? The NSA was coming out and saying, but we did brief them. We called them into meetings. Now, many of them jumped on an airplane and went home for the weekend, and they avoided the briefing, and you can bet your bottom dollar the NSA carefully planned to make sure that it was on a Friday night at 6 o'clock. You know, there's an old phrase in the legal circles that says, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And when you have accepted a position and a role and a job where you are involved in policy making and you have accepted a role to represent either your country or your people, then you are held to a higher standard. And so you are even less excused for not knowing the law than would be Joe Sixpack. You see, people like this guy Brennan are misguided, and they're traitors. They're misguided because he actually had the nerve to say the first and foremost important responsibility of the president, the commander-in-chief, is to keep Americans safe from harm. No, it's not. No, it isn't. Find that in his oath. Find that anywhere in the constitutional documents. Find that anywhere in a job description. That's not his first responsibility. His first responsibility is to faithfully execute the laws. And you keep Americans safe from people like you, John Brennan. Keeping people safe is not just a function of keeping them safe from Al-Qaeda, the Phantom Menace. Keeping people safe is also keeping them safe from the likes of John Brennan and Michael Hayden. Keeping them safe from people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Keeping the media safe from people like Chuck Schumer, who wants to license journalists. Keeping the American people safe from people like Tom Wheeler, the FCC director, who wants to put net neutrality in place and monitors in the newsrooms. That's just as damaging. People like Janet Yellen, the head of the Federal Reserve, and Bernanke before her, and Greenspan before that, and Gaitner before that. You see, keeping us safe doesn't necessarily mean keeping us safe from the horde. There's more than just one threat. The truth of the matter is, America, we're so far down the road at this stage in the game. You know, you ever hear the old phrase, I don't understand that guy. He'll swim 3/4 of the way across the river and then give up and turn back. Well, why would you do that, right? You're 3/4 of the way across. You can continue the other quarter, or you give up and you turn around and you got to swim 3/4 back. It's far longer to come back than it is to keep going. Well, let me tell you something, America. We are 3/4. In fact, I think we're actually much further. We're probably 9.9 of the way to a total oligarchy and totalitarian society where government is your absolute dictatorial master and you are nothing but a worker bee slave. Your options are limited. You are told what you're going to... You know what Common Core is about? Common Core is about making sure that there's a group of little automatons. They're teaching your children to read technical manuals, government technical manuals, not Moby Dick. You know why? Because they don't want the kid to think for themselves. And when your kid has been trained to push the button 6,211 times a day during his or her 8-hour shift, that's all they're trained for. They don't want your kid to learn how to read. They don't want your kid to learn how to do math. You don't need math to push a button. You don't need to read to push a button. You only know how to read just to read the technical manual so that you make sure that you push the button frequently enough and with the right amount of pressure. What part of slavery don't you get? This is a plantation of 50 states. And any argument you want to try to make to the contrary is either propaganda or Kool-Aid that you've drunk. We are enslaved to a small collective group of oligarchs. You know, the likes of The people who sit on the Council of Foreign Relations, the bankers who run the Federal Reserve, the Michael Haydens of the world, the the John Brennans of the world, the Barack Obamas of the world, the Chuck Schumers and the John McCains. These are your masters. I don't respect any of those people enough to spit on them if they were on fire and aflame. Why would I allow those people to be my master? But our time is up. You know what I mean? Our time is up, America. We're done. We're finished. The republic is gone. It's dead. We have one of two choices. We can apply the paddles and bring it back to life, or we can put pennies on its eyes. Those are the two choices we have. Those are the only two choices we have. You can either apply the paddles or you can apply the pennies. The question is, which is it going to be? Which are you going to do? The truth is, we know what to do. We're just afraid to do it. You know, I've read you this quote many times, but I'm going to read it to you again, and I want you to look at it in a different context. Guy's name is Patrick Henry, and he said, "It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps down from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. For I know that not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." Now, most people hear that, and the last sentence is the one that they take to heart. The statement, "Give me liberty or give me death." You missed the point of it. The point of it, the whole thing, was simply this. And if you read it in its right context, you'll understand what the real core, what was the hinge pin that holds this whole thing together. What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? What do you have that is so valuable to you that you will give up your liberty and your freedom for it? What, your job? That mortgage? The car payment? The boat payment? The four-wheeler payment? What, the china in the cabinet? The antiques that your grandmother left you? The farm you live on? What is your addiction to that stuff? That you would stand here and give up your freedom What is it that you wish? There's a phrase in the Bible that says that you will be led by that which you find the most valuable. Ask yourself the question, what is it that's your master? What is your master? A bunch of things? A bunch of ideas that are fantasy about what it should be like? You're listening to America's Voice now. My name is Michael Evans. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Eric Holder. No plans to investigate the deaths at the VA clinics. Wow. I mean, this is a guy who will jump on anything that says black or racism, down to whether or not, you get the vote. That's not death. We'll be right back.